We all fear the cold. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and steals your warmth. But what if the cold wasn't just a force of nature? What if it was something that watched you, chose you, and then followed you? This is the story of Harrow Creek, a remote town in northern Alaska, and the day the temperature became a lie. Harrow Creek was the kind of place that already felt forgotten. The streets were narrow, silent, and covered in a layer of frost that never seemed to melt. The wind howled down from the mountains, making the old houses groan and the streetlights flicker. It was a town where the snow didn't fall. It just hung in the air like a frozen mist, muffling every sound. Even with people living there, it felt abandoned. Windows were always shuttered. Porches were always empty. Even the dogs seemed to know better than to go outside. It was a cold that felt personal, aware. And in February of 2019, that cold became something far more sinister. Our story follows three people who would stand at the center of this nightmare. Dr. Lena Markell, 42-year-old climate researcher from Anchorage. She was analytical, meticulous, and believed only in what her instruments could prove. Then there was Ethan Ward, the 51-year-old town maintenance chief, a strong, practical man who dealt with broken pipes and faulty wiring. Tangible problems he could fix with his hands. And finally, 9-year-old Nora Pike, a shy, quiet girl with wide, pale eyes that seemed to see things others missed. When she spoke, her words were often unsettlingly accurate. February 12th began like any other day in Harrow Creek. The official thermometers at the weather station all read a steady 19 degrees Celsius. Mild, comfortable, perfectly normal. But everyone in town felt it the moment they stepped outside. A sharp, biting chill that sliced right through their thickest winter coats. It burned their lungs with every breath. This wasn't the familiar Alaskan cold. It was something else, something wrong. Dr. Lena Markell arrived at her station, baffled by the discrepancy. Her instruments were all functioning perfectly. The readings were normal. Infrared scans confirmed the air temperature was consistent. But when she reached out and touched a metal railing, she pulled her hand back instantly. It wasn't the sensation of cold. It was a feeling of hollowness, as if the warmth inside her very fingers was being gently siphoned away. Ethan Ward was out inspecting street lamps when he felt it too. His hands, protected by thick gloves, were going numb. A deep, radiating chill seemed to emanate from his bones. A cold that no thermometer in the world could register. He had worked in sub-zero conditions his entire life. But this was different. This was predatory. Across town, little Nora Pike turned to her mother, her voice barely a whisper. The cold, it's hungry. Her mother dismissed it as a child's fantasy, but the look in Nora's eyes suggested she wasn't imagining anything. By mid-afternoon, the first incident occurred. A woman walking her dog suddenly collapsed in the middle of the street. She just fell. When people rushed to help, they found her body was warm, her pulse was strong, but she was completely unresponsive. Her eyes were open, but vacant. The dog whimpered beside her, confused and scared. A little while later, another man slumped against his porch railing. The same story. Warm, breathing, but utterly gone. No signs of frostbite, no medical explanation. Dr. Markell examined them. Body temperatures were normal. Heartbeats were steady. Brain scans showed minimal, almost non-existent activity. They were like living statues, warm to the touch but empty inside. While Lena was trying to find a scientific answer, Ethan noticed something else. The town had become eerily silent. The constant howl of the wind had stopped. The low hum of electricity from the power lines had faded to nothing. Even the birds perched on the wires were unnervingly still, frozen in place, but not from the cold. The entire world felt muffled, as if it had been wrapped in invisible insulation. As dawn broke on February 13th, the town felt even more oppressive. That's when Dr. Markell saw it, standing across the frozen fields at the edge of town. The air shimmered with a faint distortion. It slowly resolved into a figure tall, thin, and utterly featureless. It wasn't defined by color or shadow, but by an absence of them. A void in the shape of a person. It began to move slowly, deliberately, toward Harrow Creek. Ethan saw it too. from the street below. As the figure drifted past the power lines, the street lamps above him flickered and died, one by one. Cars that had been running smoothly suddenly stalled, their engines silent. Mechanics would later find nothing wrong with them. Nora, who had found her way to Dr. Markell, clutched the scientist's coat. "It's colder when we're scared," she whispered, her voice trembling. "That's how it finds us. Fear." That was the key. Lena realized the girl was right. This presence, whatever it was, seemed to feed on their panic. The more terrified people became, the faster the warmth. The very life force was drained from them. The cold wasn't a temperature. It was a symptom of something else feeding. Determined to understand, Dr. Markell decided to run a controlled experiment. She borrowed a cat from a neighbor and placed it inside a temperature-controlled enclosure in her lab. The instruments all showed a stable, comfortable environment, yet the cat began to shiver violently. Its fur stood on end, and its eyes were wide with a terror that had no visible source. Lena switched on her high-sensitivity thermal camera. What she saw made her blood run cold, ironically. Faint, ghostly white lines, like threads of smoke, were being pulled from the cat's body. They stretched into the air and simply disappeared. The instruments couldn't measure this energy loss, but she could see it. Life was being drawn out, thread by delicate thread. "This isn't cold," she muttered to her recorder, her voice shaking. "This is absence, pure entropy." Outside, the town continued to devolve into a silent nightmare. Ethan noticed the shadows were behaving strangely, stretching and contorting in ways that defied the sun's position. The fog in the fields rolled and swirled with an unnatural purpose, as if guided by an unseen intelligence. The front doors of empty houses would slowly creak open, then shut, like the town itself was taking a slow, final breath. By the morning of February 14th, Harrow Creek was a ghost town. Houses stood empty. Pets lay on rugs, still and silent, but strangely warm. People had either vanished or were found collapsed in the same unresponsive state as the first victims. The air had grown dense, heavy, and difficult to breathe. Dr. Markell knew she had to get her findings out. She packed her essential equipment into her truck, preparing to flee. But as her hand closed around the cold metal door handle, she felt an instantaneous, almost seductive pull as the warmth vanished from her fingers. Cell looked up. The figure was standing just a few feet away, still faceless, still motionless, but its presence was a crushing weight against her chest. It was a feeling of profound emptiness, a void that threatened to swallow everything. Ethan, who had been waiting for her, rushed forward to pull her into the truck, but as he got close, his body went limp, and he collapsed to the ground, alive, warm, but internally hollow, just like the others. Through the static of her own terror, Lena heard Nora's final, chilling whisper. "It doesn't want the world frozen. It wants it silent." Dr. Markell managed to get to her radio, her fingers clumsy and numb. She sent one last, desperate transmission to Anchorage. Temperature normal. Life decreasing. Do not send help. I repeat, do not send help. Evacuate. Her voice was cut off mid-sentence. Within a week, Harrow Creek was officially abandoned. Rescue teams arrived to a town perfectly preserved. The thermometers in every home still read 19 degrees Celsius, perfect room temperature. Food was still on the tables, untouched. The pets were still warm, but there wasn't a single living human left, because whatever had visited Harrow Creek wasn't just cold. It was emptiness itself. And emptiness doesn't melt, it spreads. Thanks for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, don't forget to like and subscribe to Horror Signal TV for more true horror stories. Stay safe and stay warm.